So welcome everyone. I'm going to start with brief introductory remarks on South Asia Solidarity Group, what we do, and then I'll quickly introduce our speaker, our panelists for today, and then hand it over to them. South Asia Solidarity Group is an anti-imperialist, anti-racist organization based in Britain. We are committed to supporting, publicizing, and building solidarity with struggles for justice and democracy and against exploitation in South Asia. We've been developing an understanding of resistance to processes of exploitation taking place in South Asia, but also in Britain and globally from a left perspective. We've been involved since several years in developing links between different movements and similar struggles in Britain. Most recently, we've been involved with diaspora protests in London against attack on minorities, Dalits, ethnic cleansing in Manipur recently, and so on. For the past 1 year or half a year, we've been organizing against Adani, about whom you will hear more in this session. We've been protesting especially severely alongside other climate groups against Adani's involvement in the Science Museum, sort of putting pressure on the Science Museum to reject sponsorship from Adani because of their involvement in anti-environment activities, but also because it's a group that makes military equipment for IDF, and these weapons are being used to kill, maim orphan children in Gaza. Without further delay, before I do that, I'm going to quickly share links to our socials on the chat, both to our Instagram and Twitter. Please do follow us. That's where we'll also post the recording of this video, which you can then hopefully share with other comrades. So we have with us three panelists. First, we have the one and only Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, who barely needs an introduction. He's been a journalist for the last 40 years, has published more than 30 books, has directed over 25 documentaries, and has written extensively on the political economy in India, especially on the rise of oligarchic capitalism. His work was mentioned in the Hindenburg Report. For those of you who know, it's a report that sort of exposed globally the fraud that Adani Group was involved in. He's the former editor of Economic and Political Weekly, and he was one of the journalists who was questioned and is facing lawsuits from the Adani Group, and also was recently questioned because of his association with a progressive news organization called NewsClick. Our second speaker is Ravi Nair, who's a journalist affiliated with the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. He is the lead author of Rafale Deal, Flying Lies, which is sort of an investigative book on the role of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in perhaps one of the biggest defense scandals. His work has been critical to show that Adani Group has invested in its own stock as a proxy for over the years. Nair is a frequent contributor to news websites like The Wire, NewsClick, Janata Ka Report, and several others. He has also been a victim of criminal defamation suit by the Adani Group. And recently the Committee to Protect Journalists called it as an attack on press freedom as a part of the conglomerate strategy to have a chilling effect on freedom of speech. Paranjoy is running a fundraiser to fund defending against such legal lawsuits, but also to fund more such investigative report. I am going to share the link to the fundraiser on this chat. Unfortunately, you can only donate using that link if you're based in India and have an Indian bank account. If you're based outside, then I urge you to write to Paranjoy or to one of us on the email that I posted on the chat, and you can get details on how to make an international bank transfer. But I'll follow up with these links also in the email. Last but not least, we have our very own Amrit Wilson, who's the co-founder of South Asia Solidarity Group. Yeah, Amrit has been involved in organizing around women's rights, refugee rights, minority rights in Britain for the last several decades. She's the author of Dreams, Questions, Struggles by Pluto Press and several other books. So with that, I hand over to Amrit. Oh, sorry, just one thing. Sorry. So together the speakers will speak for about 50 minutes to an hour, after which we'll have half hour of Q&A. So please think about the questions you want to ask, and you can post them in the Q&A button that you will see at the bottom of the screen. Sorry, go ahead, Amrit.
Thank you very much, Tarun, for that. And I really have to say that I'm very excited about today's meeting, because to hear such well-known and people who've done such groundbreaking work on this subject is something you don't have every day. Without further ado, let's get into the subject. And I think the first question I'd like to ask, maybe Paranjoy would answer it, is what is the scale of the Adani empire? What's the scope and the scale? What is this creature that we're dealing with?
Thank you so much, Amrit. Thank you so much, Tarun. Thank you so much, South Asia Solidarity Group and everybody who's here with us this Sunday. And to answer that question, I need to take a few steps back. Gautam Adani, who heads this conglomerate called the Adani Group, very few people had known of him 20 years ago, certainly 25 years ago. He was just one more diamond trader in Mumbai's Jhaveri Bazaar. His family used to own a factory in Gujarat where they were making plastic products like cling film. From there, to become in late 2022, early 2023, the world's second richest man. And to become India's richest man, or certainly one of India's richest men, is something pretty spectacular. Now, why do we say one of India's richest men? Because these valuations are based, these financial publications, these business magazines, these people who compile what are called rich lists. They calculate valuations on the basis of stock market prices. And these stock market prices keep fluctuating. So at a particular point of time, if you take the valuation, and these are really notional values, but that's how you calculate them. So, Mukesh Ambani is one day India's richest man, the next day Mr. Gautam Adani is, and they keep competing with each other and exchange places with each other. Now, just give you a very quick outline of the scope and the scale of the Adani Group's operations in India. I'll just read out to you a list, which is truly mind-boggling. The Adani Group is India's biggest miner of coal, the biggest importer of coal, the biggest generator of electricity in the private sector. We have a public sector organization called NTPC, or the National Thermal Power Corporation, which is bigger than Adani. But in the private sector, he is way above anybody and everybody else. And he's not just generating electricity from coal, he's also using solar energy to generate power. And he's also a major distributor and a transmitter of power. That's just one part of the story, because Adani is huge in what we call the infrastructure. Mr. Gautam Adani's empire runs what is called the biggest special economic zone. A special economic zone is like a country within a country, where many of the rules that apply to domestic industrial units don't apply there, and they're usually export oriented. This is also where the Mundra port is located, which happens to be India's biggest container port and one of India's biggest ports. And it's second largest after the JNPT, also the Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust. But that's not all. If you look at the map of India, he is operating over a dozen seaports on both the east coast and the west coast of this country. And then it's not only India. The Adani Group operates seaports in Australia. It operates the second biggest port in Israel, Haifa. It operates a terminal in Colombo. It tried to set up a port in Myanmar, but failed. And so it is really big, not just in seaports. It's India's biggest private operator of airports. The biggest operator of airports is the Airports Authority of India, which is a public sector organization. But the Adani Group is operating 7 airports, including the second biggest in Mumbai. And he's setting up another port in Mumbai itself. So he's huge in the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure, and also in logistics. If you look at in terms of storage facilities, storage for grain and warehousing, the Adani Group is the second biggest after the Food Corporation of India. In fact, the farmers' agitation that took place over a year, it was targeted. A lot of it, the farmers were very agitated with the monopoly that the Adani Group has. Okay, they're into data centers, they're into a whole lot of projects. They're getting into a project to make from coal, plastic products. And as was pointed out a little while ago by Amrit, they are now major producers of defense equipment. In fact, they are the biggest producers of military-grade drones, also called unmanned aerial vehicles. And as you would be aware, drones have become the new sort of weapon that is being used in conflicts across the world. And in fact, the Adani joint venture with the Israeli firm has exported military-grade drones, which have been responsible for the killings that have taken place in Gaza in recent times, and also exported other defense equipment and ammunition. I'll move on. Over and above solar energy, the Adani Group is very big in distributing gas in cities. So that's just the beginning, actually. It's huge in terms of, areas which you wouldn't associate it with. Overnight, it became India's biggest producer of cement. Then it is building some of India's biggest real estate projects. Whether it succeeds or not is another story, including the one at Dharavi in Mumbai, which is often described as India's biggest, Asia's biggest, and one of the world's biggest slums or shanty towns, or what we say, jhuggi, jhopris. That's a very controversial project, and if somebody's interested, I'll be happy to elaborate on it. The Adani Group is very big in edible oils. It is currently, it's about a fifth of all the edible oils that are sold in India is Adani Group. Its Fortune brand is really huge. It's also fairly big in, surprise of surprises, apples. It is the biggest distributor of apples. Procured from within India and also from outside India. And finally, maybe I'm missing out a few, but no, I'm almost there. The media. It recently took over New Delhi Television, which was one of India's well-known independent media organizations, and is now owned by Adani. So in certain senses, Mr. Adani...
You missed out national highways.
I've forgotten highways.
National highways.
Yes, I've forgotten highways. Correct. Yes, it's also they have steamships. So it's huge. I mean, Ravi, I'm sure you'll add it. But the short point is the Adani Group has entered the lives of every Indian in some way or the other. And I forgot to mention, it's also building it is a very controversial electricity project in Bangladesh. Okay, Ravi, you can add to what I've said.
No, I mean, if we, then I mean, I think the allotted time, 1 hour, will go just like that. So, I mean, I'm sure that audience might have got an idea what Adani Group is. Let's go to the next. Amrit, what's the next question?
Okay. Well, maybe you could explain to us, Ravi, about what is the link between Modi and Adani, and was the rise of Adani, which we've heard about, was it connected to the Gujarat massacres of 2002?
We don't have any evidence to prove that it's directly connected, but if we look at the growth of the Adani empire and Mr. Narendra Modi's political growth, the trajectories, you can put two parallel lines in the graph. It goes, it's actually logged in steps. Like the more Modi grew, the more Modi became powerful, the bigger the Adani group became. To put it in very in a nutshell, like in 2013 September, when Narendra Modi's candidature was announced by BJP for 2014 general election as the prime ministerial candidate, Adani Group's total market capitalization was just $7.8 billion. And in 2022 September, Adani Group's total market capitalization was $262 billion. Just 10 years. So you can easily imagine. Till Narendra Modi became the prime minister, he took oath on 26th May 2014. Till then, the biggest Adani had three major businesses. One was Adani Enterprises, which was majorly into coal. Second was Adani Power Limited, which was into thermal power generation, and the third was the Adani Mundra Port. In the last 10 years, the way the Adani Group expanded was it's actually a kind of miracle. But we can thoroughly say that the Adani Group got a lot of favors from the Modi government, because when Mr. Modi was the chief minister of Gujarat, his territory was very small. It was just one state. So he could help the group within that state. The reach outside was very limited. But when he became the prime minister of the country, Adani reached every nook and corner of the country. That's the actual story. The sense that there are numerous examples to showcase that the government either changed rules and regulation to fit in Adani Group into a business, or changed rules for Adani Group to earn more profits. I'll cite two small examples. In 2015, when Mr. Narendra Modi visited Bangladesh as the Prime Minister of India, it was his first official visit. There were few memorandum of understanding signed between two countries officially, and one was that India will set up, two Indian private companies will set up two power stations in Bangladesh. Within few months, one MOU changed, and the change was that this company will set up, the Adani Group will set up a thermal power station in India and will export power from India. The way the land was acquired for this particular project in Godda district of Jharkhand, was well documented. It was actually, forcefully, most of the land was forcefully taken away from tribals and small-time farmers. The law was changed within the state that a state should get 25%. In Jharkhand, it was like that. If the plant is coming up, 25% of the electricity produced by the power plant should be given to state at a discounted rate. That has been changed. Before 2019 elections, the Narendra Modi government changed the law and made Adani's Godda power project that area as a special economic zone. So a special economic zone is, as Paranjoy said, it's a country within a country when it comes to tax laws. So just because this project was declared as a SEZ, once the operation starts, which started in 2023, early 2023, Adani do not have to pay any income tax for the first 5 years. Second, he is exporting power to Bangladesh, and from Bangladesh, the Bangladesh government, the purchaser, will pay Adani in dollars. Adani imported all the power equipments for this project from China without giving a single penny as import duty for all the major equipment. For the first 5 years, of course, he has income tax. No, you don't have to pay any income tax. But for the next 5 years, this particular company has to pay only 50% of the profit to be considered for the income tax. And again, 10 to 15 years, if they are plowing back from their earnings to develop the project further, they don't have to pay the income tax. They have no service tax. They have no tax. This is one. Second, in 2019, late 2018, November 2018, the PMO, the Prime Minister's office, decided to privatize. In July 2018, Prime Minister's office decided to privatize 6 profit-making airports, which were under Airport Authority of India. Airport Authority of India is the nodal agency. It's a public sector undertaking which used to run India's airports. So when normally, in normal circumstances, this proposal should have come from the Ministry of Civil Aviation and should have put in front of the cabinet for discussion. But in this case, the proposal originated from the PMO, the Prime Minister's office. It's very strange. And for others, but for us who are observing this group and Mr. Modi's relation, it's nothing new because we are so used to it. So a committee was formed, and the committee met a couple of times in November. By December, they floated a tender. So just before floating the tender, the committee's minutes of meeting, it was committee's minute of meeting, we got access to. In that minutes of meeting, the representative of Ministry of Finance and the representative of Niti Aayog, the think tank which advises government, which actually replaced Modi actually replaced the Planning Commission with Niti Aayog. So the representative of the Niti Aayog pointed out so many flaws in the tender document and the proposal. And they said that this will create massive revenue loss for the government and Airport Authority of India. Each and every valid point were discussed in totality. And at the end, when the tender result came up, just out of the blue, Adani Group, without having any prior experience in construction or operation or management of airports, became the owners of 6 Indian airports.
May I?
Yeah.
Ravi,
yeah.
I just want to add 3 small points to what you said, just to elaborate on what you say. The first is the Godda project of Jharkhand. There's no project of its kind anywhere in the world. The coal comes from Australia or Indonesia. It comes in ships to a port in Orissa in eastern India. It's taken by railways to Godda in Jharkhand. There the electricity is generated and then it's exported across West Bengal to Bangladesh. To the best of our knowledge, no such project exists
No,
anywhere.
I'll just clarify that. The coal is coming from Adani's own mines in Australia. Adani has own bulk carriers to carry it. It will come to a port in Orissa. From Orissa's Adani's own railway
Where it
line.
is managed by Adani.
Yeah, managed by Adani, where it comes from Orissa to the plant on Adani's own railway rakes and a special railway track were laid. From there, the electricity will be produced. Electricity is exported to Bangladesh. Adani earns, and the people of that locality is dying with pollution.
And you know, the water that is being taken from the river. I mean, every major project, infrastructure project of Adani, there's been some issue about local persons complaining that the environment has been degraded or ruined. You know, Ravi himself did a story, and you can check it out, how Bangladesh is actually paying 3 times the amount in US dollars what it should be paying. I mean, that was our own calculation that we found out.
For electricity. For the electricity.
Yes, I mean, for 1 unit of electricity, Bangladesh government is paying almost 9.2 rupees to Adani Group.
And I was told they don't even need electricity. Is that right?
Well, Bangladesh is not short of electricity. Let's put it that. And a former head of the Bangladesh Electricity Board has gone on record in an interview with the Washington Post saying that Sheikh Hasina did what she did to favor Mr. Modi's friend. Now you can't get any clear any more brazen than that. I'll take half a minute.
The Electricity Board chairman said, Sheikh Hasina knows how to please Modi. If she pleases Adani, Modi will be pleased. That's what he said.
And I forgot to mention 2 things. You know, at one point of time, the Adani Group was the biggest aggregator of cut and polished diamonds and studded gold jewelry from India. It's no longer big in that area. But you mentioned the 2002 riots. I want to make one point here.
Yeah.
You know, soon after the riots, where about 1,000 people died in the months of February, March, and April 2002, there were several industrialists belonging to an apex industry body called the CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry. They had registered their protest because they said this is not good for business. I mean, they had a very clear agenda. They said
just one clarification. Few months after the riots, Modi started to project Gujarat as an investment destination for the businesses.
And
so he called a meeting of the Confederation of Indian Industries, CII, in Delhi, where all these industrialists met Mr. Modi. In that meeting, Mr. Rahul Bajaj, MD of Bajaj Group, then the chairman and MD of Bajaj Group, then he raised a question: what kind of social security and situations you are creating in your state, and what kind of confidence the business people will get from this to invest in your state?
Yeah. Ravi, I'll just add one point. Mr. Rahul Bajaj is no more. The short point is, after this happened, led by Mr. Gautam Adani and other industrialists of Gujarat.
Mr. Modi got angry and he walked off. He walked off the stage.
Yeah.
Then the Gujarat
a parallel body was set up by, among others, Gautam Adani, Karsanbhai Patel of the Nirma Group, and various other industrialists from Gujarat. And this parallel industry association of sorts was the beginning of what then Mr. Modi would describe as a series of vibrant Gujarat summits, which are held from time to time in Gujarat. Yeah, I stopped.
Yeah, this is just so amazing. It's so interesting for us. You know.
That's how Mr. Modi's relation started with Mr. Adani. That's where it actually started. At least that is what we have in public domain.
Can I just move you on to the next point, which is about, we know that you just told us Adani is the biggest coal private, miner of coal. What is the scale of environmental destruction that's happening? And also the takeover of forests and so on. Are there new mechanisms for this now? Is the Indian state involved? Can you just...
Okay, all right. See, firstly, Adani is the miner. More often than not, I mean, most of the time, the land on which coal is mined is leased to government bodies, state government bodies, central government undertakings. So the Adani Group, which becomes what is called an MDO, the mine developer and operator. So that's the first point. Second point, I say this without any fear of contradiction, each and every coal mining project where Adani is involved has faced resistance from the local persons on whose land those coal mines or those coal-bearing areas are. You name it, particularly in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh in central India, in Orissa, and in other states. And the Adani Group has been accused, among other things, of expanding its operations to disrupt what is described as one of the world's biggest elephant corridors, the Hasdeo Aranya forest in Chhattisgarh. Not a single major project, coal mining project involving Adani has been free. The group has been accused of riding roughshod over the wishes of local persons, and most of these coal-bearing areas, as Ravi earlier pointed out, belong or are the residents, the forest dwellers, are Adivasis, what are described as
Most of
this
mines are in forests. For example,
and they are the most
the mines in
underprivileged. They are among the most underprivileged sections of Indian society, and whether it be what are called Jan Sunwais, you're supposed to have hearings of the local people. You're supposed to take into account their objections. There is this whole issue of relief. There's a whole issue of compensation. The whole issue of giving them, alternatives. In every single project where Adani is involved, there have been major disputes, and these disputes are continuing. Yeah, Ravi, you want to say something?
The Hasdeo Aranya. See, most of these mines are in forest areas. Not most of, almost all these mines are in forest areas. For example, this Hasdeo Aranya, the mines in that area, this forest was declared a no-go zone. It was pristine forests, evergreen forests. It was declared as a no-go zone by the government in 2009. Modi government changed that.
This is the UPA government of Manmohan Singh. Jairam Ramesh was the environment minister.
Yes, Modi government changed it to fit in Adani. It's another example. And in the case of coal, if you look at Adani Enterprises, the flagship company of the Adani Group, last year, in certain quarters, more than 60% of the group's total revenue came from coal business. So coal is very important for Adani. Without coal, Adani Enterprises won't survive for long, because it says this company says that they are the incubators for new business, for which they need money, and they generate that money through coal. They have mines in Indonesia where the quality of the coal is said to be one of the lowest quality. They have coal mines in Australia where the calorific value of coal is in the medium grade. We recently reported in OCCRP a few months ago that one of the one of the way Adani Group make money is that they procure low calorific value coal from Indonesia, send the coal directly from Indonesia to India, but Adani's subsidiaries were involved in raising the invoices in different places like Singapore or UAE or some other jurisdictions where tax laws are not as complex as India, and inflated invoice will come to India and given to the Indian company, the purchaser. In this case,
just add to what
let me
you're saying.
complete, Dada, please. Let me complete. Let me complete, please. Yeah. In this case, what we found out was that Tamil Nadu's power generation, the Tamil Nadu state's power generation company, Tangetco, was cheated by the Adani Group. They purchased low calorific value coal, which was around 3,500 kilocalorie, 3,800 kilocalorie coal. They purchased it for $28 per metric ton. And by the time coal reached here, in documents, it said the coal was, the calorific value of the coal is 6,000 kilocalorie, the topmost, and the price was $92.
So I'll just add to what Ravi is saying. Essentially, it's not Ravi or me or any of us. It's agencies of the government of India, notably the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, which is the intelligence wing of the Ministry of Finance, and it looks into customs frauds. So what you will find that in recent years, over the last 10 years and a little longer, several show cause notices have been served on entities that are part of the Adani Group, among others, who have been accused of invoicing fiddles, over-invoicing. What Ravi mentioned, it's the money goes from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, and this is not just imports of coal. These accusations or these allegations have been leveled against also about imports of machinery, and they all have a certain pattern. It's sourced from one jurisdiction, the invoices are raised in another jurisdiction, it moves through several jurisdictions, many of them tax havens, including tax havens in West Asia, Cyprus, Mauritius, different parts of,
including the Caribbeans like British Virgin Islands.
Different tax havens which come under the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom, besides Singapore, Hong Kong, and so on and so forth. So this seems to follow a certain pattern.
We know about the shell companies which were exposed, I think, by you. And there was the Elora, which was the director was Boris Johnson's brother. Can you tell us a bit, in brief, can you tell us about the shell companies?
Ravi, go ahead. Elara, Boris Johnson's brother.
No, Elara is not a shell company of Adani. Elara Capital is a standalone company which is into asset management and financial dealings, or helping family business groups, family houses, and they create funds. Those funds invest in different companies, listed companies in India, or by the financial instruments like debentures, or private placement memorandums, or those kind of things. But what we found out is that between 2018 to 2021, late 2021, more than 93% of Elara's investments were concentrated on the Adani Group. No sensible fund manager will never, ever do this, for the reason that nobody will hatch all the eggs in one basket. And Elara Group operated two funds. One is Elara India Opportunities Fund, and the second one was Vespera Fund Limited. In the case of Vespera Fund, more than 97% of its total AUM, the asset under management, was concentrated within Adani Group and different. So that's one part. So what we exposed is that Adani Group has a number of shell companies in various jurisdictions. And if we look at the final ownership, the ultimate beneficial owner chain of these shell companies, it rests with Mr. Vinod Adani, Mr. Gautam Adani's elder brother. Mr. Vinod Adani denounced his Indian passport in December 2016, and he became a Cypriot, a citizen of Cyprus. He is the ultimate beneficial owner. So, using these companies, what Mr. Vinod Adani and his two close associates, Chang Chung Ling, a Taiwanese national, and Emirati national, UAE passport holder, Nazir Ali Shaban Ali. They opened specific companies in Mauritius and British Virgin Islands, routed money using these companies through a Bermuda registered umbrella fund called Global Opportunities Fund. This umbrella fund, Global Opportunities Fund, transferred this money to specific funds registered in Mauritius, only for the purpose of Mr. Vinod Adani and his colleagues to invest in Indian securities. In this case, Global Opportunities Fund transferred the holdings of these three to three different Mauritius registered funds. The entire money of Vinod Adani, which was there in Global Opportunities Fund, came to a Mauritius fund named Asia Vision Fund. Somehow, Asia Vision Fund never invested in any of the Adani stocks. Never. From its inception in 2011 to till its closure into the late 2018, it never invested. And there were two other funds called EM Resurgent Fund and Emerging India Focus Fund. So, towards around 2016-17, 68% of the AUM, that is asset under management of EM Resurgent Fund, was held by two people, Nazir Ali Shaban Ali and Chang Chung Ling. And these funds' entire investment, the 68% held by these two people, was entirely invested in 4 Adani Group companies, which was Adani
If I can
Enterprises.
briefly butt in, you see a certain pattern. When you look at all these transactions, when you look at the ownership of some of these entities, one is they're operating through tax havens, low tax or zero tax jurisdictions. And secondly, in order to make it difficult for tax authorities to really find out not just the source of funds, but the ultimate beneficial owners of these funds, they follow very, very complex routes. So typically for each of these transactions, you have to put together, you have to have a blackboard and you show how funds move from A to B to C.
They actually create a lot of layers. For example, if there's a company called Ascent Trade and Investment Private Limited. It's Vinod Adani is the ultimate beneficial owner. And this company is a subsidiary of Electrogen Infra Holdings Limited, another Mauritius company. The owner of Electrogen Mauritius is a company called Eagles Holding Limited, registered in Bermuda. The owner of this Eagles Holding is another private limited company called Asangya Private Limited. Asangya something Private Limited. And Asangya Private Limited's ultimate beneficial owner is Asangya Family Trust. Vinod Adani and his wife Ranjan Ben Adani are the settlers of this trust. That's one. Now they don't not only just use these trusts and these companies. What they do is they use a lot of European private banks, like Falcon Bank, you name them. There are hundreds of them. They use these private banks and route the fund through these private banks obscurely to the depository services like REYL, there are a lot of clear streams.
Typically, Amrit, your viewers may be able to understand, many of these private banks operate through what are called micro states in Europe, Monaco, Liechtenstein, San Marino, and so on and so forth. I mean, these
Luxembourg.
micro states, Luxembourg,
Yeah,
Luxembourg.
interesting.
But there is
Really,
one country which is involved in this largely, which is Switzerland.
absolutely.
So in our findings, we found that Switzerland, the banks registered. For example, REYL and CIE is one of the private banks and depository services which is registered in Switzerland. We sent questionnaires, but we never got any answers. So this private banks and depository services, if they are subscribing to a fund, they will not disclose the ultimate beneficial owner's name. The problem is not in this case, the problem is with the tax laws of those countries and the freedom they enjoy. If any questions, they will say that no, the privacy laws of our country or our principality doesn't allow us to disclose the details.
You know
That is
what happens, if I can just add to what Ravi is saying, the OECD, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, the gathering of some of the richest countries in the world, they put down all kinds of rules. They say, you mustn't have, you mustn't allow this kind of tax.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to.
Yeah. So,
Let me complete. Please don't obstruct my flow.
These are technical terms they use. And how do we get to know about it? How do we get to know it? Yeah, it's called base erosion and profit shifting, BEPS. I mean, an ordinary person will find it difficult to understand these concepts. Base erosion, profit shifting. You essentially shift the money so that you don't pay taxes. The sum and substance of what Ravi and I and what we are talking about is, how do we get to know about this? There have been leaks. There have been leaks, including leaks through organizations like the ICIJ, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the Panama Papers, the Pandora Papers, and so on and so forth. And that's how there are whistleblowers from within these organizations, the HSBC whistleblower, Falciani, and they kind of somewhere along the line, their conscience is pricked. And so they, sorry, give a dump of data to one of these organizations, and then it's up to journalists like Ravi and others in the OCCRP to try and process that information and try and link them to individuals.
Okay. Now, can I just ask you something which is not directly about this, but connected? Now, we've been involved, as Tarun said, in a struggle against the Adani Green Gallery in the Science Museum, right? And what Adani have said is that Adani Green is not a part of the Adani, that is something separate. So, I mean, how do these companies actually link up?
Adani Green is 100% Adani Group company.
I mean, you just can't say that. I mean, there's no evidence to say that Adani Green Energy is any way not connected with the conglomerate. And what we are saying is they deliberately
70 to 75% stake of the Adani Green Energy Limited is held by the Adani family.
So I don't know how they can make these claims, because this is the way these conglomerates work. I mean, the whole idea is to have layers and layers and layers. And if you look at all these entities, it's not easy. It's a difficult exercise to find out who owns what and how and when, and that's how it works. And I mean, literally, there are hundreds, if not over 1,000 such entities.
Now, see, one more thing related to your question. Even if Adani says that Adani Green Energy is not related or it's not a polluting business, we have to look at it from other angle. Adani Power Limited is the largest thermal power producer in the private sector in India. They earn millions and millions of tons of coal every year for every project. The same group.
Yeah.
The same ownership. How can they say that Adani Green Energy is not a is not contributing to the pollution?
They say they're very clean. I mean, this is a complete rubbish, of course. But
No, there is,
that-
this is part of a bigger story.
Yeah,
Technical word that is often used is called greenwashing.
yeah, it is greenwashing.
I
That's
mean,
what we use.
I mean,
Yes,
you take
yeah.
Adani.
Adani Group
Yeah.
imports 26% of the total coal imports. Adani Group controls 26 to 27% of the total coal imported into India.
More than a fourth. So if you look at what happened in Australia, you know, the Abbott Point, the project in Queensland, it's called, you know, it's not just the coal mining project. There is a railroad, there is a port. At one time it was touted, I think about 10 years ago or 12 years ago, it was described as the world's biggest greenfield coal mine project. But as you're aware, the environmental activists are very strong. The local persons, the Aboriginal, the original inhabitants of that area, they came together, and several other organizations came together, as a result of which the final project is less than a fourth of what it was originally envisaged. The point is, Australia has a strong they have strong associations and strong groups of activists who are environmentally aware. Now, this is not the case in India and many other countries. I mean, levels of awareness is the level of awareness is relatively low in comparison, and more importantly, the big bucks. I mean, they.
I disagree with you, Paranjoy. I disagree with you here.
All
It's
right,
not that that kind of awareness is not happening or that kind of protest is not happening in India. That's not true. The difference is the Indian media is not taking up those kind of protests, and it never comes into mainstream. For example, the protest which was going on in Hasdioran, it went on for many years, more than a decade. And it was highlighted in international media, but it never came into for the Indian media never disclosed it with the importance they should have given to it. That's one. Second, there was another project of the Adani Power Limited, which was in Chindwara, which was a district in Madhya Pradesh, was about to come out. The local protest forced the Adani Group to put the project on hold.
Yeah, actually, we've had some Adivasi speakers in the past who have stood up and talked about this. But
Yes.
in the next, in fact, sorry, can I just finish? Our next meeting, we're hoping to invite some people from who won against Adani in Hazaribagh recently. So, so I suppose, you know.
All right. See, I'm not disagreeing with what Ravi is saying. Yes, there have been protests, there have been agitations, but let's accept that those who opposed the Carmichael project in Australia and eventually succeeded in reducing it to less than a fourth of what it was originally planned, they're, in certain respects, you know, they're better funded. And that helps them organize better. And what Ravi said is correct. I mean, Adani himself is a major media, runs a major media organization. So the fact is that large sections of the media in India have been very, very subservient to Modi and the Modi government, as a result of which, because Adani and Modi are so closely aligned with each other, they do not give the kind of importance that news developments take place. I mean, look, when Modi moved from Ahmedabad, which is the most populous city in Gujarat, to be sworn in as Prime Minister of India in May 2014, he flew Adani's aircraft. And it's all over. That picture can be seen. Everybody can see it. And when Abir Dasgupta wrote a detailed piece which pointed out all the times Adani's aircraft has been used and what have been claimed and what the records of the Election Commission of India show.
Sure.
The silence on the part of the authorities in India is definitely. is deafening. So,
can we just, no,
Yeah.
I see what you mean totally. Can we just talk briefly about what's happening with Israel? I mean, with the export of drones from Adani-made drones and the Adani takeover of Haifa and who knows what else. People are talking about this India-Israel military-industrial complex. Do you want to just briefly talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I'll get Ravi to elaborate on the details. There have been a series of recent articles that have been published in the Wire portal by Ramachandran, which actually documents how this was done. So it's not just drones. We found it's also come out, shiploads of ammunition that are from India, gone to Israel in a convoluted way, it's gone via Spain. So the point is, you must remember that Narendra Modi is the first Prime Minister of India, only Prime Minister of India, to have officially visited Tel Aviv after becoming Prime Minister. No Indian Prime Minister has paid an official visit to Tel Aviv. So at one level, the India's Ministry of External Affairs says, oh, no, we support the Palestinian cause. But in actual practice, the government of India, the Modi government, and all its actions have been heavily weighted in favor of the Netanyahu regime in Israel. And India is the biggest buyer of Israeli defense equipment, from missiles and guns to technology to spyware. We suspect that even the Pegasus software has been purchased. And at different points of time, we found that, about a fourth of all the exports from military exports or defense-related exports from Israel have come to India. You want to add something?
Maybe this is a good point for you, both of you, to tell us about the spyware situation.
In the case of Adani, Adani signed his first JV agreement with an Israeli company way back in 2017. It's called, I forgot the name of the Israeli company, which makes into UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles. And a Bangalore-based company was using this technology for so many years to develop UAVs and electronic equipments related to the warfare. Adani took over that company also. So it was since then Adani started to make UAVs, but the weapon grade UAVs that entered much later, by around 2000, towards the end of 2019, and today they are the largest exporters from India of that. Second, in 2017, when Mr. Modi visited Israel, it was said, or it was widely published, including Amnesty and other organizations, that was the time the deal for the Pegasus was finalized. And by around 2021, it was confirmed that Paranjoy's phone was infested with Pegasus, along with so many other journalists, opposition politicians, jurists, lawyers, academicians, and
social activists,
civil society
judges.
activists, and judges. Last year, we sent a questionnaire when we were about to publish the OCCRP report on 22nd. 22nd August, we sent a questionnaire to the Adani group, and the next day it was confirmed that the phones of a couple of my colleagues were infested with Pegasus. On that time, luckily my phone was on lockdown mode, and I changed the phone. I don't know why, but I've been asked to change the phone, and I changed the phone immediately. We were in Europe then. On last October, when many of the opposition politicians received message alert from Apple, 5 Indian journalists received the threat alert from Apple, and I was one of them. So as of now, I don't know whether.
Here. And this is a huge subject. Maybe on some other occasion, you can have a more detailed discussion with me just on Pegasus. Pegasus is the world's most dangerous software. It's made in Israel. The government of India neither confirms nor denies that any agency of the government of India has purchased the spyware. In fact, 2 years ago, when the then Chief Justice of India, Justice R.V. Ramana, asked a straight question in the open court to the Solicitor General of India, please say whether or not any agency of the government of India has purchased the software. Say yes or no. And the Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta, he says, I cannot answer this question. He didn't say I will not answer the question, but he said I cannot answer the question on grounds of quote unquote national security. Now, the Supreme Court of India has appointed a committee of technical persons, other persons who have that report has been kept under covers, though the then Chief Justice of India said that its observations and its findings would, at least some of it would be made public, some of it would be redacted. And most importantly, the then Chief Justice of India, Justice Ramana, said that the government did not cooperate with this committee that was set up by the Supreme Court of India and headed by a former judge of the Supreme Court of India. We are hopeful that the Supreme Court will take cognizance of this case, which has been pending now for 2 years.
Maybe you could tell us what this actually means for journalists, for press freedom in India. What are the implications of all
it means that this is zero click. That means you wouldn't know when somebody has entered your phone. You don't know. I mean, Pegasus, and by the way, all the big wigs of the information technology world are suing Pegasus in a court in California. You name them, Microsoft and Apple and Facebook and Google, all of them are suing them because they're saying you are violating the terms and conditions of our agreement. And essentially, it can enter your phone without you knowing about it. It can access everything in your phone. Theoretically, your phone can be shut off. It can be switched off. It can be in an airplane mode. They can still put it on. That means they can, those who are...
It's not that they can put it on. They can operate your camera and microphone.
They know everything.
Suppose you are under shower and your phone is in the washroom, they can switch on the camera.
So, maybe one of these days we can have another conversation on the subject. There's a book that's been written on the subject. There's two French journalists. There is an international non-government organization called Forbidden Stories based in Paris. This organization received a dump of about more than 50,000 telephone numbers, which were, quote unquote, allegedly infected or compromised by Pegasus. So this organization teamed up with Amnesty International, which in turn also teamed up with a Toronto-based organization, one of the leading digital forensic organizations. It's called Citizen Lab. And they came and they came out with the data. And the Wire was one of the media partners. And if you go through the what has been printed, there have been literally hundreds of persons from India whose phones were allegedly compromised, and that includes, as Ravi was saying,
in OCCRP. In OCCRP, you can check for Pegasus project. It was a big project and a series of stories published. You'll get a lot of information from there.
So basically, it's an attempt at silencing. So, so if it's like that for you, what's it like for, less known journalists writing the vernacular and so on.
Absolutely. I mean, if you imagine here is a person in Godda or somebody in the Hasde or Anna, we're talking about environmental violations of environmental rules or Chhindwara. This has a chilling effect. This, and just as the lawsuits have a chilling effect, this has a chilling effect. He said that, look, there's one particular activist, Rupesh, who's behind bars for now 2 years, now more than 2 years.
More than 2 years.
So this is the whole idea is to intimidate. So they're saying, if we can do this to Ravi Nair, look what we can do to you. So that is the clear message that comes through. So
the other interesting part is it's not that everybody can afford an iPhone. So a lot of people use Google phones.
Once you bought an iPhone and you know it's infected, can you afford to buy another one or a third one? It's just not practical. And today, India is connected. I mean, we have a country of over 1.4 billion people and well over a billion, well over 1.1 billion quote unquote subscribers. These little SIMs that you put inside your phone, SIM, that's a subscriber identity module. So, I mean, we are in a situation in India where, like in most parts of the country, not just cities, not just small towns, across the country, there are more SIMs than human beings in many parts of India. So we are today become the kind of a laboratory for all kinds of, misuse of software, spyware, fake news, you name it.
And in the case of
quite
Android
a lot of
phones,
it comes from Israel as well.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Actually, I'm sure that in the questions, people would want to discuss the whole Israel relationship more. But I think, we've had this amazing session with you. And now I think we should open it up to the floor, unless there's something very urgent that you wanted to say.
No, I think we more or less said what we had to say. One small point I want to say. A lot of people say, so what's new about the nexus between business and politics in India?
We'll come to that. That's a larger point. We'll come to that later.
Maybe in the questions. Maybe in the questions we can come.
I can.
We have only 25 minutes now.
Yeah, because we need to allow the public to,
I want to make
to come in.
Yeah, sure. We have the time. See, crony capitalism is neither new nor is it unique to India. Oligarchy is also neither new nor is it unique to India. The nexus between business and politics is such that the Adani connection with Mr. Modi takes it to an altogether new plane. And I must tell you, only one person who said it as openly as he's the Chief Minister of Delhi, who currently happens to be behind bars. We are talking about Arvind Kejriwal. There was a session of the Assembly of Delhi. So what I'm saying is what he said. He had a special session where he said he met a senior leader of the BJP who allegedly told him that, this company, it's not Adani's company. It's Modi's company. This money is not Mr. Adani's, it's Modi. It's Mr. Modi. And many of the opposition parties now conflate the two words and talk about Modani.
Okay, well, on that note, let's open it up to questions.
Thank you, Amrit. I'll take the last question first because it sort of is relevant to what Paranjoy was just saying. We have a question from Lucy asking how activists here in the UK can communicate to people who are not based in India the extent of Adani's power and also why it's dangerous.
Why is it dangerous? Because, this actually transcends ideology. It goes beyond whether you're left or right or center, whether you're capitalist or socialist or whatever. I mean, take the case of the Mumbai airport. Mumbai is India's second biggest airport in terms of passenger traffic and goods traffic. How did Adani come to acquire the company that operates that port? The company that used to operate it earlier which was really the GVK group. You look at the timeline. Ravi has written about it. We've collaborated on an article on this. One by one, this particular company, MIAL, Mumbai International Airport Limited, the tax guys got after them. The tax authorities, the Central Bureau of Investigation, the Serious Fraud Investigation Office. They put, I mean, there were moles and there were all kinds of things that happened. And there were companies across the world. There were companies in South Africa and another one in Mauritius and so on and so forth. Finally, things reached a stage where the GVK group said, you know, we voluntarily relinquish control over this company to the Adani group. Now, the GVK group can say anything, but the circumstances tell a clear story. How law enforcement agencies and agencies of the government of India, regulatory bodies and regulatory authorities have ensured that the playing field is not level. So I'm giving you here an example of airports, and there are several other examples.
I'll give you another example. Towards the end of 2018, starting of 2019, Holcim is a Swiss major, which is into cements. They had two companies in India, Ambuja Cement and ACC. They started to get notices from the income tax authorities, and they raided a couple of times. Today, Holcim exited India, and Adani owns both these both these companies. As simple as that.
Overnight, he became the second biggest producer of cement in the country. I mean, it's following a certain pattern. Ravi, why don't you tell them what happened to Sri Lanka, the power project in Sri Lanka, where one of the head of the Ceylon Electricity Board actually went on record saying that he was virtually told by the then president of Sri Lanka, Rajapaksa, to give a particular contract to Adani. And then after he said it, and he said it in a meeting of a committee of parliamentarians, and it's all there available in the public domain. And after he said it, he quickly backtracked, and it was all denied. He said, no, actually, I was very disturbed. What did he say? I'm very
no. Colombo Port's chairman told me on the record, which I have the record. I recorded it with his permission. That he told me on the record that Government of India proposed Adani's name as the official representative of India, of Government of India, for the development of a terminal in Colombo Port.
Yet they're calling it a government-to-government deal.
It's a government-to-government deal. It's on the record.
Yeah, that's quite staggering, the level of like coercion and also like involvement and the cronyism between Modi and Adani. And I think it leads well to the next question, which is about, or maybe I'll combine two questions because we might be running out of time, is about, do you think that Adani's sponsorship of the Science Museum, Rafael asks this question, is a way for Adani to get a foothold in the UK economy?
It's withdrawn, right? That sponsorship has been withdrawn. I think it has been rejected recently. Can you please cross-check it?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Hasn't.
All right.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, they, you know, basically the campaign has got rid of another sponsor, Equinor, but
Okay.
Not Adani. But I want to add just another bit to the question. Also, how do you see green energy in Adani's portfolio? Is this a genuine move towards, you know, solar power and environmentalism, or is it just
facade? It's a facade to burn more coal.
My own view
The
is that
reason. Let me complete. I started. Let me complete. So it's because Adani started to import more coal. Adani started to mine more coal. Adani's started to operate more thermal power projects. Adani is acquiring more thermal projects and setting up more. And Adani is setting up a coal to PVC project He's setting up a copper project where coal is the main fuel.
Copper smelting.
Copper smelting is so where the coal is the main fuel, and he's increasing his mining capacity in Australia. In India, he's expanding. He's participating in the coal mine auctions and getting a lot of mines and new mines. In the last 1.5 years, he got 4 new coal mines, and in there he's expanding. So for people like us, what we think it's a facade for him to showcase this as a project, the green energy as a project where he can raise more money through the way of green bonds, or when it comes to ESG, he can say that okay, this is a company completely into renewable energy. So that's the basic idea.
The way I look at it, it's part of what the term I used earlier, greenwashing. Adani is very closely identified with big coal. And we can have a longer discussion on this. The world over, with India and China in particular, the two most populous countries in the world, the dependence on coal-based energy will continue for some time. At the same time, what cannot be denied is across the world, there is a trend of moving towards clean energy, which is energy from wind, energy from the sun, energy from tides, etc., etc. It's important for Adani to show that, look, I'm not this big, bad, big coal guy. I also am a big player. I'm India's biggest player in solar energy. Look, I'm funding the Science Museum in London. So I think it's largely a public relations exercise aimed at, what should I say, conveying an impression that he is, not just a votary of big coal.
If you look at the ESG norms, nowadays most of the European and foreign banks, American banks, or the financial institutions, they watch closely on the ESG of every corporate before funding. So if we look at the ESG,
And the acronym environmental,
social and governance.
And governance, ESG.
Yeah. So Adani Group's ESG stand has been rated as very low. So now they are trying to engage, not trying to engage, they engage a lot of PR agencies to project in a different way. And Adani Green Energy is helping in a big way for that.
And I just to add to what Ravi is saying, to a greater or a lesser extent, this is happening. I mean, look at the big oil companies, look at the big petroleum companies, whether it be Shell or Exxon, whether it be France's Total, all of them are trying to show, we are not just burning hydrocarbons and polluting the atmosphere and sort of contributing to global warming. We also are, doing this in terms of green energy, so this is part of.
And then one thing, I mean, just to clarify what Dada said, Total Energy has a 36% stake in Adani, is one of the companies, which is again a carbon fuel company.
Hydrogen.
Adani Total Gas.
Achha,
okay. They are the largest importers of, in private sector, they are the largest importers of natural gas in India, and France Total Gas. It holds around 36% stake in that company. It's a listed company. So it's not only coal.
So in fact,
quite shocking, actually. Yeah.
In fact, Total has withdrawn. It had announced a big project in hydrogen with Adani, but that hasn't come
back. They came back.
It hasn't taken off. Yes.
No. They said that they are not withdrawing now.
They're coming back
this year. Yeah, they're coming back.
Okay. We only have about 9 minutes left, and maybe if it's okay with everyone, we can maybe run over for a couple minutes more. There are a few more very interesting questions. One is from Jyotsna, and maybe I also had another question from Nirmala. Jyotsna asks, how or why Adani's fortunes don't seem to decline despite Hindenburg. And Nirmala, I think, asks a very interesting and important question is does Adani openly participate in the Hindutva movement, apart from merely bankrolling Modi and benefiting from this cronyism?
Let me answer both these questions, and Ravi can add to it. After the Hindenburg research came out, report came out on the 24th of January, 2023, Adani's stocks collapsed. So if it was 100 a few days earlier in the middle of January, it was down to about 40. And then it took about a year or so for it to go back to where it was in the middle of December. So to say that it's not had an impact would not be correct. The whole 23-24 period, I mean, if you take the period from January 23 to January 24, Adani took a big hit. Yes. Then it got another
$150 billion from Adani Group's market capitalization washed away.
That's great. 50 billion was the market cap loss.
150
then
billion.
There is another
150 billion lost from 247 billion market capitalization.
Correct. So that is what we've seen. There's another group headed by another Gujarati gentleman, and that group has bailed Adani out. GQG. Got that right? No, GQB.
GQG Partners.
GQG Partners, and it's Mr. Rajiv Jain, who's the head. He's a American.
GQG Partners is a fund registered in Australia and operates from USA. So when the share prices fell down, what happened? Many of these companies, many of these investors thought it's a good time to buy, and there were rumors in India, though we don't have any evidence, that the government forced government companies like LIC and SBI Capital or other government investors to invest and purchase the shares of the Adani Group.
Which they all deny.
Yes, but they are purchased. Whether government said or not, we don't know. But they purchased. Then what happens was that when government organizations and these kind of big funds invest in companies, that actually boost the investor confidence. Now we have to understand it from a different perspective. When we say that the company lost, these market capitalizations are at notional values. It's not actual money. The only people who lose actual money is the retail investors. Because the retail investors who purchased on January 20, for example, and he thought that he'll sell after a week or after a couple of months, then the report came up. Then the price started to fall. The share prices started to fall. So there's a fear psychosis. They'll think that if I hold for more, then I might lose for more. So the people go on panic selling.
No,
that's exactly what happened.
There have been several accusations leveled against insider trading. None of them have come to. I mean, it's a longer story about what the market.
No, insider trading, Dada. We have proven that with
no. 1 minute. You may have proven it according to your estimation, but the Securities and Exchange Board of India is what is happening. They are not acknowledging.
No, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, even after having the details, I mean, the DRA adjudicating agency, after having all the evidence in front of them, they did not. They find no fault in that. Though for a layman or for an expert, everything was wrong in that. For us, we are saying that Adani's own people did circular trading and insider trading.
The way Ravi and I perceive it, the regulator of the markets, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, is not. So the other point is chosen not to look at it. In fact, SEBI has gone after the messenger. SEBI has served a show cause notice on Hindenburg research. The point I also want to make is
the problem here is the Supreme Court of India, while the case was going on, the Supreme Court of India said OCC OCCRP might be a good journalistic institution, but the court cannot third-party investigative reports at its face value.
So this is the apex
SEBI,
code of it?
the
This is
SEBI
the-
wrote, SEBI wrote to OCCRP. So OCCRP said there are a lot of names and individuals are involved in this. We have given this to our lawyer in India, and please contact our lawyer. Till date, SEBI never contacted our lawyer.
So the point is, when the authorities who are responsible, they don't want to look deeper, journalists like Ravi or me or anybody else, we can do our bit. That's all we can do. On Nirmala's question on Hindutva, I think, let's look at it this way. Narendra Modi's project of the Hindutva project, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, its project of India becoming a Hindu nation. Next year, the RSS turns 100. You can never have a direct link. You can never show that there is a direct link between Adani and the RSS or Modi and their social and political agenda, the Hindutva agenda. There are 2 points to note in this context. First, there is also the Adani has substantial interests in states in India which are not ruled by the BJP, including Kerala, including Tamil Nadu, including West Bengal, etc., etc., etc. And let's accept that. When Rahul Gandhi was asked why his chief minister, then chief minister Ashok Gehlot, was sharing the same platform with Adani while he was sort of railing against Adani, he said, if an industrialist tells a chief minister that he's going to invest huge amounts of money, billions and billions of dollars, and create hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs, what would you do? 2 points. One is India's election results were declared on the 4th of June. On the 31st of May, between the 31st of May and the next trading day, which was the 3rd of June, the volume of transactions of India's stock market doubled. And it was a sudden jump. And when the results of the elections were known, and it was known that the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, its number in the lower house of parliament in the Lok Sabha had come down from 303 to 240, which is 32 below the halfway mark, the markets collapsed. And with the markets collapsing, Adani Group stocks also collapsed. Just that they had increased.
No, we cannot say that market collapsed. If we look at the benchmark Nifty and Sensex, which is went down by around 5.9 and 5.6, 5.7% approximately. But if we look at the fall of Adani company share prices on that day, it fell average on 19.7%.
So that's the point.
It's a political message. So
yeah, so
the investors know.
Rahul Gandhi, 1 minute, Ravi. Rahul Gandhi clearly said that the people of this country see the two together. So when the rise happens, the Adani stocks rise faster than the average, and when it falls, the same is true. One point I want to make, while the elections were on, the Prime Minister of India, in a public speech in Telangana, he said that Rahul Gandhi wakes up and he chants a mantra saying Ambani, Adani, Adani, Ambani, Ambani, Adani, Ambani, Adani. And then he suggested that these two oligarchs were sending Rahul Gandhi tempos or van loads of cash. And he said, Chori kamal kya, aisa kuch, I mean, he suggested that this was illegal money that was going. Now, the interesting tailpiece. 2 days ago, a petitioner moved the Lokpal. The Lokpal is the people's ombudsman, saying you should investigate.
Lokayukta.
You should investigate what has been claimed. And the Lokpal dismissed the case, saying this was kind of said during elections, in the heat of elections, that could be dismissed as propaganda, election propaganda. So I'm just stating certain facts to you.
Thank you so much. We have several other questions, but I will have to apologize to the participants that we won't have time to take them.
I'll tell you, Tarun, why don't you quickly read out the questions, and then in our concluding remarks.
No, I would, Dada, I would prefer to leave. I cannot speak for long on one go like this.
Because I have a concluding question that I would really like you to answer before we go. But there are questions on, attacks on journalism, on ongoing court cases, and so on. I also want to tell the audiences that South Asia Solidarity Group is planning to run a series of seminars on Adani. And so hopefully one of those webinars would take up some of these topics around which the questions were asked. So if I can ask the concluding question, and since we're already out of time, I would urge you to maybe answer in, maybe in 2 minutes or less. And yeah, I want to ask for myself and also for all of us attending, what's the best way you think people here in the UK can resist Adani and support the movements that are already happening in India against Adani?
Ravi?
No, you can. Please go ahead. Because Adani doesn't have much presence in UK, and we don't expect that Adani will... because, see, in most of the projects, not most, almost all the projects of Adani, infrastructure projects of Adani, which requires a lot of land. So Adani, even if it is ports, for example, if you look at Adani's Mundra port, which is almost 36,000 acres. It's so almost all Adani projects are thousands and thousands of acres, and in the heart of Mumbai, the Mumbai airport. So Adani looks into those kind of projects, which I don't think he will get from UK because of the limitation of land, and the government and people are sensitive to the ecological destruction, environmental and ecological destruction Adani's projects usually create. So directly, I don't see in the near future anything Adani setting up in the UK.
I have a slightly different take. It's not just those who are watching me, who've been listening to us, those who are participating in this conversation. It's not just, contributing to support me or Ravi. I think there are several movements happening in different parts of the country. There are several civil society organizations and others who are doing their bit to raise awareness of what is happening. I think that's the best way. That's the best way the support can come from people in the United Kingdom, that let the people know, let the world know. Let the world know. Let as many people as possible know. We know that some of Adani's, the transactions involving the Adani Group are currently under the scanner of the SEC. That's the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States. There are all kinds of things that are happening and all kinds of things that will happen. And yes, attacks on journalists, of course. I mean, we already mentioned to you how one of the reasons why Mr. Adani is today a major media owner of a media organization, notably NDTV, is because, he wants pliant media organizations. You should watch the way Mr. Adani was questioned by India TV, Mr. Rajat Sharma's programs. And what was not disclosed was that at one stage, one of Mr. Adani's companies had invested in Mr. Rajat Sharma, the India TV company, the company that runs that television channel. I say that these lawsuits, including the lawsuits against Ravi and me, are also have the chilling effect. SLAPP, strategic litigation against public participation. They have the money, they have the lawyers, and they can keep these cases going on and on and on. And
they actually silenced many journalists in India. People won't write, and many publications also. They won't write.
No, they just bought them up. They just bought them up.
Yeah, they won't write anything critical. They won't point out any corruption. from the government favoring Adani. They won't do that. There are many journalists like that who used to write or who used to speak. They're no more. So basically, these are actually threatening.
And this is true even of government officers.
Yes.
Honest government officers, honest investigators. Some of them have been silenced. Some of them have been bought over.
So this is a tactic to silence, because the journalists like us, we cannot run to the court every time. We cannot afford to pay to the counsels and the lawyers every time, and the expenses of traveling up and down. Because usually Adani files cases in some remote corner of his home state, Gujarat, and from reaching that place itself is a task.
You know, I know in January 2021, a magistrate in Mundra issued a non-bailable warrant of arrest against me. And later, the Gujarat High Court stayed the execution of the warrant. What was the accusation? That I wasn't appearing in court. What does the Supreme Court say? The Supreme Court says for non-appearance in court, you first have to send that person a bailable warrant. And then if I still don't appear, then you give a non-bailable warrant. This is how things work. I mean, you should imagine what impact it had on me and my family, my wife, our children. You know,
in my case, I never got a summons. I never got a summons from any court. And one day the cops walked up into my house with a warrant, arrest warrant. So this is how Adani works.
Gosh, yeah, that's terrifying. We unfortunately have to end on that very grim note, but thank you for all the work you do. And yeah, go on, Amrit, sorry. Yeah,
quickly?
yeah.
I just want to thank you both, because one of the things which South Asia Solidarity Group does is support or amplify the struggles in India, particularly the people's movement. So it was very heartening to hear Paranjoy mention that as one of the things we can do. And also in terms of Adani, one of our main sites of struggle here is the Science Museum, because it brings together what's happening in Israel, as well as, of course, what's happening in India and Australia. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Paranjoy and Ravi, again. And thank you also for your great moral courage against.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for this wonderful time. I wanted to sit for some more time. I have a lower back issue. I cannot sit for long in one go.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Gets better soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a reminder to the audience that there are links to the donation page on Paranjoy's website. But if you don't have an address in India, then please write to the email that's on the message, and you can get details about where to bank transfer it. And yeah, please do continue to follow us on the Instagram page and Twitter, because we'll have many more such webinars. And we'll also soon be out with an edited recording of this video on YouTube, and which we'll also share it with you, Ravi and Paranjoy, and hopefully you can also
thank you so much.
spread the word. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you.